All right. Where are we going? Yep, there we go. All right, welcome to another movie review stream. My name is Mark McPherson, film critic for movieswithmark.com. And it's the end of March, and we've got a few films that we've got to cover before the month is over. We need to cover a horror sequel that came out few weeks ago called Ready or Not 2, Here I Come. We've got a small indie film, not quite indie, starring Rose Byrne, the Academy Award nominated Rose Byrne from If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. She's in a true story legal drama called Toe that we'll be reviewing. And also the Super Mario Galaxy movie opening this weekend. Well, actually, not even this weekend. It's opening tomorrow or midnight if you're doing that. The sequel to 2023's Super Mario Brothers movie. So try to keep the spoilers to a minimum. Obviously, we're getting closer to summer territory here, so we're going to get into bigger franchise films. So don't worry if you're worried about spoilers. None of that happens here. I've been in this game a long time. I've reviewed, Avengers Endgame, Blade Runner 2049, all of them without spoiling anything. So we'll get those reviews out for you today. Let you know what that's if Mario's worth your money this weekend. If you like to stay up to date on the latest movies, as the one I'm going to be reviewing today, be sure that you like this video to let others know about it and subscribe so that you keep up to date. I also have a Patreon below, which will give you early access to my video essays as well as my movie history books that I'm writing and a few other projects that I'm working on. So you can check out the Patreon below. And in fact, the people on Patreon got to see some of the videos I edited together for Anime Detour, the convention last weekend. So if you want to see all the crazy crap I did at the satirical Incorrect History of Anime panel, the videos are up on Patreon. And they're mainly up there because I think I could get in copyright trouble with what I was editing to show at the convention. So you can check it out there. So we'll get right into the reviews, but before we do, let's read a little bit of the chat here. Rowie says, Super Mario Galaxy movie, a beautiful looking movie, chock full of references and nostalgia, with an okay story / narrative. Well, you'll find out. You'll find out once I get to review it. And Ian Bain says, keep up the great work, Mark. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. Enough chit-chat. We will get right into the reviews here. Let me get the right credits up here so that everyone who just arrives in late knows what we're reviewing. I'm sure they'll know by the title, but still. It helps to let them know. All right. Let me get everything off to the side here. Let me get my notes up here. And let me get the little... Actually, not coffee. Water would help there. Coffee was keeping me warm in this abode. So, all right. Here we go with Super Mario Galaxy in 3, 2, 1. So the Super Mario Galaxy movie is the sequel to the Super Mario Brothers movie, and while oxygen doesn't seem to be a problem with this space-bound adventure, there is no breathing room for a movie this bloated with Nintendo stuff. Rather than further develop the characters of the previous movie, the Super Mario Galaxy movie doubles down on its referential high, just, choking the viewer with its branding. This is the inverse of a movie with Easter eggs for the fans, where those not immediately dazzled by the abundance of theatrically animated Nintendo characters must peer into the background for any semblance of a movie that's just a movie and not an advertisement. So there is a family dynamic in the sequel that just, it never feels fully explored, with characters just busying themselves with action scenes that appeal more to the games than replicate any stakes to be had in the story. You have, in particular, sorry, just a little breath there. Okay. In particular, there's Princess... One moment, sorry there. Okay, one more time with that. Yeah, so there's Princess Peach, once more voiced by Anya Taylor-Joy, and she finally has the sorry. Man, Don't drink coffee before you do these. Okay, one more time. So there's Princess Peach, once more voiced by Anya Taylor-Joy, and she finally has the mystery of her origins revealed, but in a manner so rushed as to make room for more important scenes, like the origin of her weaponized umbrella. There's a romance between her and the plucky Mario, once again voiced by Chris Pratt. But that is teased, and just, it felt like there was potential there. But again, no time for love, because Mario has too much on his plate for a film where he has, where he still has to, work alongside his brother Luigi, once more voiced by Charlie Day, to team up with the dinosaur Yoshi, voiced by Donald Glover, a character whose personality doesn't extend beyond eating matter and pooping eggs. And I found that just so... The whole film is like this. It has so much potential and then just squanders it. Like, I feel like I'm Kevin Garnett in Uncut Gems, where it's just like what was the point of showing me that if I can't have it? Like, why are you going to tease a romance with Peach if there's no time for that chemistry or develop it? Like, if you didn't want to do it, fine, but don't just like tease it and then just let that arc just peter out. And the same thing happens with the villain in this movie. Or villains, rather. So, the villain Mario and company must defeat this time is a tired excuse for a universe-destroying threat. The returning Bowser, voiced by Jack Black, had his moments of, from the first film of being obsessed with marrying Princess Peach, going so far as to compose an obnoxious song about her. But his son, Bowser Jr., who's voiced by Benny Safdie in this film, has little in the way of personality or motivation, aiming to just conquer the galaxy with a giant gun, because that's just what bad guys do, and there's not too much more to it than that. For a villain who possesses and here's the thing, for a villain who possesses... one more time with that. So, for a villain who possesses a magical paintbrush that can bring any illustration to life, he's really painted with broad strokes. Like, from that staging of these two villains, like, you would think that there'd be a little bit of like a father-son dynamic, where, Bowser would have to learn, what he's taught his son might not be the best, and that he might not be that good of a father, and that it feels like there's a redemption arc being set up here. And the first half of the film does seem to set that up, but any possibility of, Bowser having a character shift just peters out amid Junior's generic quest for power. I mean, it just feels like that character is like a black hole. Just saying like, no, you're not going to have any development. Come on back, Dad. Let's just be, generic bad guys who, we get a big weapon and we hold the universe hostage, just typical Saturday morning cartoon villain stuff. And it's baffling that the film spends so much time on the wasted potential of a father-son dynamic, while the motherly bond, of Princess Rosalina, voiced by Brie Larson, and her cute little star babies is kind of just kicked to the galactic curb. Like, once again, fun stuff there that is never explored. And I think the movie is most insulting, I think, that Mario and Luigi feel just like passengers in this story with absolutely no development or stakes beyond saving the Mushroom Kingdom again. The crush that Mario has on Peach is a whole lot of nothing that squanders nearly every opportunity for chemistry. There's an entire montage of Mario and Luigi skimming through recognizable levels, but more for the purposes of housekeeping than saving the galaxy from the big gun or bringing some new development in with their brotherly connection. It just feels like they're going through the motions. Peach's origins, they do have potential. Now, as for Peach's origins, they do have potential, but they're so watered down that she literally has to have a manual handed to her on her backstory. I could not believe that happened. Just, Peach's origins are so watered down that she's literally handed a manual on her backstory, and even the crossover inclusion of Nintendo's Star Fox, voiced by Glenn Powell, has so little room for growth that he has to rattle off his entire story in a brief, stylized introduction that does nothing to, it doesn't play a role in the rest of the story or even make for fun banter. Just nothing. I mean, there's no time, no breathing room, no little moments to enjoy with the characters. All you really get are just kind of throwaway punchlines. The characters must race to the next planet, loaded with references for Nintendo fans to spot. And this rushed, underdeveloped story is especially frustrating when considering just how nice the movie looks, like with its colorful displays of outer space bathed in these blues and purples and starships of varied designs soaring, soaring across the stars. I even kind of dug the designs of how one stop on this adventure is to a casino that has shifting gravity. I really like the layout of that setting. But after the third action scene meant to duplicate a Mario level, and the fourth sequence of Mario and Luigi narrowly escaping danger as the camera swings around them, I just long for something more to care about than how many detailed environments crowded the screen. There's a scene where Mario and Luigi turn into babies, forcing Yoshi to protect the de-aged brothers from being gobbled up by dinosaurs. And this should be exciting, but I just don't care. And I don't care because I know there won't be enough time, left over to do anything more with this development other than just, referencing Yoshi's Island before moving on to the next inclusion of video game nostalgia. Even the references are exhausting in their onslaught of logos, characters, accessories, and music plucked from the games, turning the film into a version of Where's Waldo, where Waldo is cloned and in the foreground and everywhere. Like, there's no challenge to it. Like, how like films have Easter eggs that are kind of nice to find here and there for the fans? This movie is all Easter eggs. It just takes all those Nintendo Easter eggs and just shoves them down your throat to the point that you're just vomiting up pastels. And the egregious insertion of intellectual properties is agonizingly tiresome as the film progresses, even becoming very jarring. Like, there's a scene that's meant to be very sad, but it really feels tonally off when they use the sound effect of a warp pipe that just, it doesn't fit. Like, sure, it's being true to the games, but when you're trying to stress an emotional moment, not all the sound effects work that well. And I'm sure that, this must be a dream come true for lifelong Nintendo fans who only desire a deluge of their favorite console iconography just mashed on the big screen with theatrical animation. But, I mean, I gotta ask, like, when is it too much? Like, there's a scene where one of the planets visited features a vast skyline of Nintendo ads with hundreds of Mario characters milling about in every shot. And there is no cleverness in these inclusions, or in there's not even charm in the use of the recognizable. There's just an emptiness to how these scenes meant to be thrilling and wondrous have a cold corporate touch to them. When everything is a cameo or a reference, none of it means anything. There's no shock, there's no surprise, there's no wonderment. Like, so what if another Nintendo character pops up? What will they add to this movie? Because based on Star Fox, it looks like nothing, aside from giving video game fans another box to check as they furiously scribble all the game connections for their wiki page or things you missed YouTube video. So yeah, the Super Mario Galaxy movie is less an exciting space adventure and more an extended Nintendo commercial with the slimmest of narratives. And just like, what a depressing feeling to know this film teases entire worlds to explore with colorful characters, and none of it feels curious, dazzling, or even fun. Like, every character has been reduced to a lifeless husk, robbed of any arc and built for little more than scenes of running, soaring, and fighting off hordes of enemies. Every joke has been forced through the 4-quadrant meat grinder to be as safe and respectable to family audiences and to Nintendo's precious identity. Every reference has been drained of any unique inclusions, served up with as much enthusiasm as a cafeteria cook just dumping a ladle full of cold sloppy joe onto your tray. And considering the colorful closing credits, the first batch of credits you have that kind of recap the story, that list the director and, the cast, they have a section for 15 people that are listed just under Nintendo team. And just seeing that in the credits just made me think, there are too many cooks in the kitchen here. With the special of the day being, oops, all Nintendo references. And just my low expectations for these movies they've shrunk further with this film. I just felt my heart to make that power down sound that plays when Mario gets hit, the brr, brr, brr. I find, and I don't want to hate this film because I still find the Mario games fun, but the Mario movies are so far from that level of entertainment that they might as well be in another galaxy, with this sequel just pushing them even further into the distance. So, I wasn't that big a fan of the first Mario Brothers movie, and I'm even less of a fan with the Mario Galaxy movie, just because it never really does anything with its characters, never really pays them off, and it just kind of settles into just shoving all this Nintendo stuff at the screen without really doing anything with it. So yeah, it's a lot of the problems I had with. One more time with that. So yeah, it's a lot of the problems I had with the first Mario movie, but even more so. So yeah, I really did not like the Super Mario Galaxy movie. So the Super Mario Galaxy movie will be playing in theaters tomorrow, or midnight tonight if y'all want to catch it. So you can check it out there. You can see for yourself. You don't believe me. But I think a lot of you are like, oh, it can't be that bad. I think you will be surprised just how aggressively tiresome the Nintendo references get in here. So I'm sure we got quite a few comments here. Let's check out some of the comments here. So Thistle T says Mario is problematic media. Nah, it's safe. It's safe. It's safe stuff, and that's kind of the problem. I think it's too safe. I think, because Illumination, with their Despicable Me films, they want to make 4-quadrant movies, and Nintendo wants to make a mint and wants to make sure that their properties are respected. So you combine those two, and you get the blandest of blockbusters. You get a tailor-made experience that is, I think, is only really going to be of note for Nintendo fans more than anyone else. Hobo Film says, this makes me want to rewatch The Wizard. It's been a while. That was the other one I was thinking about comparing to, but the only reason I didn't is because my last Mario, for the previous Mario film, I did reference The Wizard. But yeah, I think Super Mario Galaxy, the movie, I think is in running to be even more commercial than The Wizard. Because it has a lot of the same products being pushed as The Wizard, but even more so. So I think that might have been the goal. So yeah, I guess if there's one good thing I can say about this film, it's that it does have a lot more Nintendo iconography and is more unapologetically commercial than The Wizard. So there's that, if that's any consolation. Mr. Munchman XXXL says, probably gonna skip this one for sure. Yeah, if you didn't dig the last film, you're definitely not gonna dig this one. Rowie says, Mario movie writers, are we a movie or a video game movie? It's not even like video. The thing is, I guess now that I think about it, it kind of is, because this is kind of the mindset of 2020's video game movies right now. Is like, because if you look at like Sonic the Hedgehog, it's just, I didn't really care for the films. I don't think they're terrible, but I think the biggest draw of those films is just that it references stuff from the games. And then you have the other notable franchise of Five Nights at Freddy's, which is just, it's an incoherent mess, but it references stuff from the games, and that ends up kind of becoming a big draw. And that's the same deal with Mario here. Mario is just following the trend of just, throwing as many references at the screen. And this film almost feels like it's cutting out the middleman. It's just like, well, if references is all that it takes to satiate fans, what if we just make the film nothing but that? What if we barely even write a story? What if we just peter out arcs, just set up everything and then forget about it, and then just like shove in Star Fox and shoving this location and this piece of music and this logo and this this level and this character and this power up. Why don't we just throw all that at the screen and barely even just have like the most rickety of framework for a narrative? And that's unfortunately video game movies now. And I think for fans are probably like, yeah, that's cool. I just want to see my game up on the screen. But for everyone else, they're really hard to get through. Let's see. Rowie says, Nintendo executive. Yep, sorry, I forgot to read the rest of your joke there. Yeah, that tracks. Let's see. Thoughty Prime says, I had a feeling this was going to be a bloated mess. Yep, yeah, you weren't wrong. Rowie says, if you guys are mad about Mark spoiling the Fox McCloud cameo, don't worry, Nintendo's marketing spoiled that themselves. Yep, there's been official posters for that and everything. And believe me, there's some other cameo stuff in the film that I haven't spoiled, and I will not spoil here, because, well, for one, like, I don't want to, provide spoilers and ruin anyone's chances for surprise in the movie, but also because if that's all you're looking for as a Nintendo fan, that's it. That's all you're going to the movie for. So if I just tell you it now, that's going to ruin it for you. And that's the last thing I want to do for y'all. If you really do love if you love the last Mario movie and you don't care, you just want references and stuff, I will not spoil that, because because with this mess of a story, that's like the only thing that I think is going to entice a lot of people and get them cheering. Even though, I don't know, we had a press screening and it was like kind of just, aside from a few chuckles here and there, we were just like cold in that theater. Mr. Munchman says, I might just go get that Yoshi popcorn bucket. That's the thing, is you can do that. If you just want to go to the theater and just get the bucket, you can. Because they're just sold right there in the lobby. I know at least for like Imagine theaters, you can do that. Because I remember, like, I did go to like the press screening of Five Nights at Freddy's, but my family wanted the Five Nights at Freddy's popcorn bucket or whatever, so I just swung by there during the day, popped in, grabbed it, out. Keep in mind, though, man, they're expensive. That stuff, like, will run you. Let's see. Thoughty Prime says, was there any hints for future characters? I don't think there's any, like, hints. I think it's usually if they bring up other characters, they just trot them out, so I don't think there's any hints there. It's not even really, like, hints. I think it's just, like, they immediately say, like, oh, if this character exists, then these characters must exist. So, yeah, it's not so much clues. It's just like they'll tell you. They don't really tease that. They spend more time teasing characters having chemistry that'll never come, or backstories that are never resolved. But they don't tease cameos. If there's a cameo of a character, they're front and center, Let's see. Zilla Pizan says, hola. Hey, how you doing? Campbell Zilla says, I kind of felt this would be overstuffed when I heard about the Star Fox cameo, and I already was kind of borderline with the inclusion of Mario Kart and Donkey Kong stuff from the last movie. Yeah, those fears are not unfounded. You are right on the money there. Public Library user says, did you enjoy the Galaxy movie? No. No, I did not. I really did not. I was so bored watching all these jokes not land and all these action sequences that I don't care about because they've barely set up the characters or given them an arc or given them something to do or stress the stakes any more than just being generic Saturday morning stuff. So, yeah, did not like this movie. Sonic movies are pretty decent at being actual flicks, at least. They are. I will say this. I didn't really care for the Sonic movies, but I would gladly watch them over the Mario movies. Without question. Just because they actually have arcs that pay off. They actually have a few really decent jokes strewn throughout here and there. Not the best punchlines, but I do think there's some funny asides, and there's room for like Jim Carrey to play up the role and have fun with it. There are some like a little bit of fun back and forth between like the different Sonic characters that I think works, even though I thought they were more detached in the third one. And I didn't really care for the pathos of Shadow the Hedgehog in the last film, but at least it was an arc. At least it went somewhere. At least it built the character instead of just saying, oh, here's his backstory. And now here's a bunch of Dragon Ball Z action scenes. So, yeah, more work went into Sonic. Let's see. What else said? Public library user said, heard Fox got more movie time. Lol. I mean, he kind of does and he kind of doesn't. Like, he plays a substantial role in the film, but only to the degree that he's just going to be like, a pilot. And he'll get in a few punchlines. If you're hoping for there to be any, like, decent, like, chemistry or, like, a setup for, like, a Smash Brothers movie rivalry, you will be disappointed. There's none of that in the film. Which is really sad. I mean, because, like, I know a lot of people are going to probably, like, rag on me for saying, like, well, what do you expect from a Mario movie? It's like, well, I expect if you set up a character arc or a backstory or a developing relationship that you actually follow through with it. I don't think that's a heavy ask for a kid's movie to just, if you set up an arc, play it through and don't just forget about it amid all the action. I don't think that's a huge ask of a film like this. It shouldn't be, but it's Illumination, and this has kind of been their framework for the longest time, and it doesn't sound like they're going to change it. Let's see. Callie from Beyond says, hello, for the Bakshi, I actually think he could have remained it. Oh, is this something? Oh, sorry. I'm catching up here with all the chat here. Hang on. Let's see. Public library user says, 77th comment, including the animals used for the animal husbandry. What the fuck? Okay. Let's see. Comic Jaden says, it sounds like this film is very uneventful to watch. I'll just go see Hoppers. Yeah. That is, if Hoppers is still playing right now, that is the superior animated film. Hoppers is far and away my favorite animated film of the year. It is going to be hard to top it. It kind of seems like this is what they want. Is they want to appeal to the fans who are going to pump as much money into this as they can. Which it sounds like it's working, unfortunately. So why shift course now? If anything, I'd be surprised if the third film is just like, I would be surprised if the third film even has a story. Like it's just like oh, something's gonna blow up and just all these Nintendo characters will crowd the screen. They might as well at this point because the bar just keeps lowering further and further and further with these movies. See, Public Library says, I think people want to see the film because of bad reviews. Possibly. I mean, and if you do want to see the film based on my review, that's fine. Because ultimately, I want to give you guys an idea of what the film is and come to like your own consensus of it. So if you hear how I've described the film and Nintendo references are your jam and the fact that I mentioned there's an abundance of it is, appealing to you, then yeah, that go see it. If that's your whole deal, let's see. Sorry, the chat's going a little quick here. Rowie says, legit hate that counter argument. Why shouldn't we ask for a little more effort? That's like being in a relationship with someone and they do the bare minimum. Right. But the thing is, like, they're not even doing the bare minimum. Because if you set up a character arc, typically you pay it off. Or you have moments where the characters have chemistry. Because if you don't have down moments and everything is up, and everything is cameos and references, then it means nothing. So they're barely even doing the bare minimum. I guess they're doing the bare minimum in the sense that it's a motion picture. There are CGI rendered scenes that move and they have color, and there is sound, and there is a voice cast. I think on a rudimentary level, yeah, sure, it's a movie. Mr. Munchman says, it's not going to bomb because of kids, realistically. Here's the thing. Kids and millennial parents. Because millennial parents who grew up with Nintendo, like myself, will go to this film and they will feel, at least I think the draw for them is that they're going to remember all these classic odes to the games they grew up playing. Like, there's a lot of, like, 8-bit Mario stuff in the movie. There's a lot of familiar soundtracks. There's a lot of, like, dated needle drops. Like, with this film, I want to call a moratorium on something. I would like there to be, like, for filmmakers, please, if you're making an animated film and there's a scene that takes place in a city, can you please not play Notorious, can you please not play Notorious B.I.G. again? Like, yeah, I thought it worked in Spider-Verse, but I thought it was okay for the time period in the Transformers movies, but seeing it just included in the Mario movie, just for a sequence that means nothing once you see it in context, it just felt like, it felt like, you were just going by the book. You weren't really adding any flavor. It's just like, oh, it's a city scene? We'll play Notorious B.I.G. It's like, can you think of anything original? Let's see. Douglas says, the only halfway decent Mario movie is the one from 1993. The 1993 film is a mess, but at least it's a fun mess. Like, it's so bad you can have fun with it. The Galaxy movie is so bad, it's incomprehensibly bad. It's just, it's egregious with references that, like, you couldn't even have, like, a drinking game if you did references. If you did a drinking game, you would be dead about halfway through because of how much they throw up on the screen with, like, Nintendo references. Campbellzilla says, in response to Douglas, yeah, I don't like that movie, but at least I remember it. Same with Ron Howard's Grinch versus Illumination's Grinch. Yeah. Man, Illuminations, just... Ugh. How many other films are they going to turn into safe, boring features, Let's see. Jack Daxter says, any movie with a Dennis Hopper performance that wacky will mop the floor with, I know what that is any day. Right. Yeah, like Dennis Hopper was... I know he's like the villain du jour back in the 90s, but he's good at what he does. And I think he's fine in the role, See, that Homestar says, I feel like this is kind of an issue with Mario as a whole. I struggle to think of a Mario games themselves that have much of any level of character development in them outside of, like, Paper Mario. And you've actually touched on, like, the biggest problem, I think, is that Nintendo is trying to remain very protective of Mario. But the thing is, the framework for Mario isn't, if you want to make a film, you have to take risks. You have to develop your own story. And I think your own type of, like, character arcs and what you want to do with that world and how you want to portray it. I think there's stuff you have to take, a leap away from the games and try to make a film that works instead of just, duplicating everything from the games, because the games are very simple. Like, they're fun, but they're not really built for an engaging story. And a lot of people are going to use that as an excuse for the film to have a very rickety framework. But no, that's lazy. That's a refusal to take this material and do something with it. If you're going to make a Mario movie, don't just throw references. If I wanted references to the games, I would play the games. I don't go to the movies just to play Where's Waldo. I go to the movies to feel something, to see something expressed up on the screen. I want to care about Mario's journey. I want to feel for Peach's origins. I want to, root against Bowser. I want to feel that in a film. And if there's punchlines, I want to laugh. I don't just want them to feel like the stock inclusion, like they're just, like, doing the bare minimum to make a film. So yeah, demand more from your movies than just, the Smash Brothers they reference. Let's see. Peanut Putter says, I'm going to be in tears giving this 1.5 stars on Letterboxd. I already did. So I'm right. I don't feel too bad because I didn't really have that much of an investment. I didn't really care for the last Mario movie, but yeah, it is what it is. I'm not even that angry at the film. I wish it were better. And I know what Illumination is, so I'm not too surprised. I can't be too shocked and angered. Like, I saw the last movie. I've seen the other movies Illumination has made. I knew what I was getting myself into. It's just still the bar just keeps lowering a little bit with each like Despicable Me and Minions and Super Mario Brothers movie, you know. Let's see. Tenchi Fujiwara says, "Hey Mark, I don't know if it's just me, but do you feel like every Illumination film follows a specific formula, or am I just crazy?" Not really. I mean, there is kind of a formula for who they appeal to, and how they and how they assemble their films. There is definitely
finds a way.
There is definitely a formula to it. I think one formula is that I've been debating this based on how they frame their films, but I think one of the general ideas I think that they put first and foremost in their movies is just what are some good slapstick jokes? What's a good set piece? And then they just build a film around that. Because I feel like they forget about character arcs, they don't make them pay off, and they just toss them aside. They start with characters that have a motivation and have a drive, and then just resort to like Looney Tunes style shorts. And I guess I feel this way because I've seen the little shorts that they do for Minions, and I think they're okay. They're pretty funny for what they are as short animated films, as just like a series of slapstick jokes. And I think that's where Illumination succeeds best. And their films just feel like a bunch of those shorts just stitched together with the loosest narrative that can hold it all together, just barely. Like they just took a whole bunch of like shorts that they wanted to make, put some stories on the side, duct tape it all together, and just hastily toss it onto the screen. That's what it feels like a lot of times. I know obviously it's not, with the animators, obviously they put a lot of work into what they do. I'm not trying to disparage them. I just think the framework that they've built for Illumination, which is built to gain as much money with the tightest budget as possible. Obviously, the budget's ballooned a lot since the smaller days of Despicable Me, but I think that's still the motivation and the drive for how they make their films. And they've done little to improve upon it or move on from it. If anything, they've just kind of dug their heels in further, because why fix what isn't broken? In fact, just run it into the ground. See how far it can go. Because the worst that will happen is that it won't make as much money. And then they have to like move on to something else. And when I say that, I don't mean like move on to a different framework. I mean move on to a different property. Grab another Dr. Seuss if you can. Find another book. Get a short story. Spin off a Minions character. So let's see. Let's see. I'll read a few here, but we eventually got to get back to reviewing other movies. I know how much y'all love Mario. Let's see. Rose says Mario is the Mickey Mouse of Nintendo, safe, inoffensive brand mascot. I would say that, but if you've seen the recent Mickey Mouse shorts, where they let animators like have a go at just making them weird and gross and kind of a little bit like Ren and Stimpy, they're actually pretty good. So I think I think Disney kind of learned that lesson, that if you just open up more and let other creatives take a whack with your franchises, you can get some interesting stuff. And I don't think Nintendo is there. And I don't think they're ready to. Because like I said, in the credits, 15 people listed under Nintendo team. And I can't help but feel that was just everybody at Nintendo who went over to Illumination, looked at all the designs, looked at all the scenes, and said, oh, you can't do this with this character, or you need to change this design, or this is not something a character would do, or you can't write this, or the characters can't interact like this. It feels like it was micromanaged to hell and back, that it's so devoid of any of any vision beyond just meeting all the demands of the Nintendo Corporation. So I'll read the last two here, and then we'll get into reviewing the final two films that I need to get to. Let's see. Let's see, Super Mario Galaxy games. So what did you think of the video game Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Odyssey, etc.? I played a little bit of Galaxy. It was fun. I played Odyssey to completion and had a really good time with it. I think it's clever. I like the physics dynamics of it. I like the weird little worlds and the fun stuff you could do. I wish it were a little bit bigger, but for what it gives you, it's a fun game. I like the style of it. I like the music. Like I said, the games are fun. They're still fun. There's no surprise there. Let's see here. Roey says, hell yeah, the best characterization of Mickey. Yeah, the most recent one. Yeah. The Mario game's still good. So, like, for as much as I hated the Mario Galaxy movie, no offense to Mario games. They're fun. I doubt I have to say that. Even if you really did hate this movie, you go back and play those Mario games. You're like, yeah, you know what? This is fun. It's got nice colors. It's got good music. The sound effects are nice and fun. They're charming games. All right. Enough gushing about Mario. We need to talk about other movies. So let me get some water here, and we'll talk about a horror film. Let's wash the illumination out of our mouths here. Let's see. Let me get everything in position. Here we go with Ready or Not. 2 in 3, 2, 1. So Ready or Not 2, here I come. Is just it's more mess in this film. Because if you remember the first movie, it was just like a giddy and gory excuse for Samara Weaving to obliterate an entire house of Satanists that want to kill her on her wedding day. And the thing is that in the sequel, they still managed to satisfy even when the satanic magic isn't as potent the second time around. So Ready or Not 2 certainly has a grander ambition to expand its world, but in every degree. Not only are there plenty more players on the field and displays of satanic violence, most chaotic, but also far more rules and a cast that just crowds the screen as much as the meaty chunks strewn throughout. And yet, it still has some fun with the material. Not as much fun as the first movie, but it's still worth the reheat of these leftovers, even if there's far too much on the plate. Like, it just feels like, okay, you're giving us more of the same, but a little too much, I think. So Samara Weaving returns to the role of Grace with more at stake than just her life this time. Thrown into the mix is her estranged sister of Faith, played with a similar cynicism by Catherine Newton. They have a history they need to come to terms with, which is progressively explored as they come under attack by even more Satanists than before. Their dialogue is rather clumsy at times, and the sisterly feud isn't given as much room to grow between scenes of blood and bruises, but Weaving and Newton do have some good chemistry in a handful of scenes that really does sell the sister angle well. Their back and forth bodes well for a movie where the two of them get into the swing of things a little too quickly, where it isn't long before they're slinging jokes amid getting punched, stabbed, and shot at. But you know what? They do manage to get in some pretty good jokes, and I do really like the energy between them. So I do think, their performances really make this role. And I feel like if they didn't have that great dynamic between them, the film just would not work. So the game for Grace is so complex this time that it requires a lawyer, played by Elijah Wood, to explain it all. And just, he's perfect for this film. Like, Elijah Wood, he just comes on the scene and just like, you know that this is not his first rodeo. Like, he's like ready to go. Like, you believe this guy is a lawyer who works for Satanists. So with Grace defeating the previous family, her survival win forces her into a battle of multiple families vying for the top position of the Satanists who get to rule the world. Even before the game starts, the lawyer is already speaking like a walking rule book, divulging the specifics about who Grace can kill and when. Sometimes when sometimes when nobody else is in the room to hear it, as though he's addressing us as the audience directly, saying like, look, like, okay, this happened right now because, if you try to kill Grace before the game starts, you explode into blood. And it's like, I kind of got that, and I feel like that would have been explained later, but whatever. I guess, any excuse to have Elijah Wood come on the scene and, really play up that role as a Satanist who just delivers that line of "Hail Satan" in a manner both casual and professional. He was made for horror movies and wears this role like a glove. So the colorful ensemble is assembled with various Satanist families, and they do have their own moments to shine here and there. You have Sarah Michelle Gellar and Sean Hardesty. Sean Hardesty? What more? So you have Sarah Michelle Gellar and Sean Hardesty playing this squabbling sibling duo who serve as the perfect counter to the healing relationship of Grace and Faith. Kevin Durand cackles as a coked-up killer, dialing up his usual goofiness to a degree that fits this film. You have Olivia Chang, who is presented as a more calculating schemer, while Varun Saranga is the most delightful loser of the snooty Satanists who gets humiliated on a grander scale, beyond just being gutted or exploding into bloody chunks. So, with their assortment of weapons and family feuds, there's plenty of variety as the game takes place on a resort, using everything from propane tanks to a dance floor mic stand to an industrial washer at one point is used in this carnage as all these Satanists want to kill Faith and Grace. So with all of this and a small yet prominent role by David Cronenberg, which I was really surprised to see him show up in this film, there is so much going on in the sequel that so much of the gruesome absurdity feels rushed. So the manner in which Grace dons the dress and sneakers again is presented as ridiculous and with no time to appreciate the strangeness of her situation. It just feels like, we're getting back into the swing of things just really quick, just like, she wore this dress in the last film. Let's get it back on for no other reason, just because, she looks badass as a battered and bruised bride who has to scream at the elites that she's killing. But I do think it works with having Faith take along as though it were a bring your estranged sister to work day. So the killer Satanists are comical, but to a degree that rarely feels distinct in their desires and selfishness. The many ways that they are killed are so clever in their execution, even if the punchlines don't quite land after each exploding body. Now, the most common comparison to the film is sure to be John Wick. In fact, I've seen a few reviews already, mention like it's just like John Wick, where the sequels just, open up the world wider and wider. Which Ready or Not 2 does here. Because it does have that same vibe where the devotion becomes more about the abundance of people exploding into blood rather than, the who are these people that are exploding. There is a decent theme to explore, having moved on from the previous film with its stance that generational wealth isn't worth the people you have to sacrifice. Grace has to be a little more clever for this film and how she reconciles with her sister and finds a way to not only survive but keep the Satanists off her back without sacrificing her soul. And it's a little bit of a lighter theme, but it gets the job done of staging another round of the most dangerous game, Satanic Edition. So Ready or Not 2 still has some charm that manages to wriggle out of its bloody heap of characters and kills. I had some worry that this larger scale would dilute the picture in the same way that your best friend becomes a different person when they get richer. There's definitely a change in tone and characters, but some of that old dark magic is still present to appreciate, just one more round. Samara Weaving she still looks badass in a bloodstained dress, and she might as well get some use out of it. I mean, when else is she going to wear it again? So, yeah, I didn't like the sequel as much as the first Ready or Not. I think it gets a little too comfortable with the cartoonish, over-the-top violence that it has and how it stages the Satanists. But for the good performances and a few nice kills here and there, and some decent chemistry and just really good energy throughout. I think it's worthy enough to be a decent sequel. So yeah, I kind of enjoyed Ready or Not 2, Here I Come. So you might be able to find Ready or Not 2, Here I Come in a few theaters. And if you like some fun horror, yeah, it's worth a go. Jax says Elijah Wood MVP. Yep, he is. If there's any actor who's perfect in this film who needs no notes, it's Elijah Wood. He is perfectly calm, contained. He has the perfect shit-eating grin. He knows when to pull back. He knows when to get involved. He knows how to state the rules of being a Satanist with this with a little bit of contempt, a little bit of glee, and a little bit of professionalism. So yeah, he's the best part of the film by far. See, Jack Dexter says, I love how odd his career has been. Yeah. After Lord, I love how, like, between him and, like, a few other actors, like, they move on from fantasy to do more horror. They star in one big film, and then they star in a lot of fun, smaller films. I love it. Anytime Elijah Wood shows up in a horror film, I know I'm going to have a good time. Like, he was in a film from, like 6 years ago. He was in a really good film I loved called, it was very strange. It was called, I think it's called Come to Daddy. And it's just a bizarre film where he's being stalked and abused by this killer and trying to bring him into his world. And I think it's perfectly suited for Elijah Wood. Really good movie. Kajixana says, I'm surprised you haven't made a video calling him Movie Bob. That guy is outright unhinged in a lot of ways. I mean, in some aspects, yeah, there are problems I do have with Movie Bob. There are. I might make one on him if I can find a good theme, because that's the thing. I don't just want to make like a random call out video. Like if I do a profile on someone for an essay, I need to make sure like it's like a one and done. Like it's gonna cover a lot of ground, and that's it. So it has to be something a little bit more comprehensive. Eventually, I might. There's some other film essays in the pipeline. If you're all are wondering, I did work on. I've spent a lot of time working on an EFAP script, and it's about their longest video, and it is the one that you're thinking of. I have finished it. I've not just finished their video. I finished the script for it. I'm gonna film that eventually. There is a video series that I'm planning to start up soon. I'm just trying to work out the little details of the script with it. And I think there might be an essay coming for Super Mario Galaxy and the current crop of video game movies we had. A little bit more artistic, like the Minions and Melania essays that I'm working on. So you can look forward to that. There's one more comprehensive that I want to talk about on a general theme. There's another profile, and there is a more artistic one that I've got in the pipeline for next month. So, yeah, if y'all been enjoying that stuff, stay tuned. There's more of that coming. Let's see. Nyamver says, hi, do you like the taiyaki, the ice cream shaped like a fish? I don't believe I've had it. I've had like a few fish-based Japanese foods. I think I've had like some was it like a fish paste like candy or cracker, I think. So I might have eaten something like that. I probably just don't remember it. So I might have liked it. All right, we got one more review, so let's crank that out really quick here. And it's Toe. Let's get a smaller film after all the big ones that we covered, eh? All right, so here we go with Toe. Let's see here. All right, here we go with Toe in 3, 2, 1. So Toe is a true story based on a woman trying to get back her car. and it stars Rose Byrne. Now, compared to the intensity of last year's If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, Rose Byrne is taking a stroll through the inspiring yet routine assembly of this movie. It's a true story that favors a calmer route of one dealing with bureaucracy, homelessness, and the way that relationships can crumble under so much stress. Yet, the stress has this nearly maddening glaze of ease, as if there is always someone behind our shoulder with a blanket and a cup of cocoa, assuring us that everything will be okay. And as odd as that comfort might be for a frighteningly relatable tale, the effort put forth is almost enough to make me ignore the hideous libertarian in the distance, ready to slap this picture with a approval of bootstrap pulling. So maybe this will make more sense as I go along. So the story is about Amanda, of course played by Rose Byrne, who feels as though it should. One more time with that. So the story is about Amanda, played by Rose Byrne, who feels as though, this film feels as though it should have an extra dose of discomfort. She's a vet tech who struggles to find work and is living out of her car, pridefully trying to keep her dire situation hidden from her daughter in another state. So when her car is stolen, she's frantic to have it recovered, as it's her only source of housing and her only means for getting another job. And then frustrations boil over when the car is recovered, but the tow truck company refuses to release it without payment. This sounds nerve-wracking, but Amanda endures the paperwork route in her pink attire, her hair tied up, looking as though she's about to finish a batch of laundry after taking care of the legal system. Now, of course, it takes much longer to get her car back than expected. A slight delay turns into a legal battle that spans over a year, with Amanda seeking every option to get her car back. There are a few familiar faces who play up their roles in this mission for her automobile. You have Dominic Sessa, who you might remember from The Holdovers. He is predictably plucky as the young lawyer trying to work with Amanda, a prospect that she reluctantly agrees to, given that he's younger than her vehicle. Octavia Spencer is the insightful yet tough homeless shelter manager with a perfect balance of sympathy and sternness in her rules. Demi Lovato and Ariana DeBose melt into the roles of fellow homeless women who befriend Amanda. Their plights are played up. Their plights are played. One more time with that. Their plights playing more. One more time with that. Their plights placing some perspective on Amanda's situation. There's a mild charm in Simon Rex playing the just doing my job tow truck employee and the scheming lawyer for the tow company played by Corbin Burnson, who does come off almost cartoonishly evil, but damned if it doesn't feel like the truth in this world. So the tone is light enough that it rarely feels maddening, letting the darker questions about our homeless and legal system fall by the wayside as we root for this one case. There's a whole lot of work with the montage. There's a whole lot of work in the montages where we watch as Byrne struggles to make some cash while Sessa embarks on a never-ending quest to get Burnson on the phone. The pitfalls in Amanda's fight are often graced, but rarely drag her further down. After a big win and a bigger defeat, she resorts to booze, which almost gets her kicked out of the shelter for good, where she almost engages in street tricks to make ends meet. There's an admirable quality to how sure Amanda was of her case that she kept at it for so long, but also just this empty feeling about the stories that don't have this happy ending. Because not every poor woman gets this far with getting back their car and receives a biopic starring an Oscar-nominated actress. That said, a victory is a victory, and the film at least doesn't hold back in stressing, in the textual epilogue at least, that Amanda never received an apology or even a charged battery upon her car's release. So, Toe is a movie where the performances shine most over an underdog story that hits so many familiar notes with a predictable rhythm. Byrne is wonderful to watch, even when cranking down her anxiety to match the picture's lighter touch built for a rousing monologue in the climax. So if you really like Rose Byrne, but you were too on edge watching If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, you can relax with this film. This is a much... I mean, she's still stressful in the film, but it's not as stressful. You won't be like gripping the seat, wanting to like leave and just like feel, your heart, your heartbeat rising, So, what was it? Oh yeah. So Sessa and Spencer delivered what I expected, but it's hard to argue that they're not good at what they're cast for. And despite the solid acting, I still felt these actors deserved better. Just as I felt Amanda deserved way more from the capitalist system that nearly destroyed her life for refusing to give her car back. But sometimes, you just take what little wins you can get, and I can't deny that there's some satisfaction in Byrne's anxiously amusing delivery of the line, "Give me back my car, bitch." She doesn't say it quite like that, but yeah, I think Byrne does give a pretty good performance. I just don't think it was quite enough to lift this film out of being the melodrama that it shouldn't be. So I'm kind of on the edge here, but I mildly don't recommend Toe, even though I did like the performances. I think it worked well for what it was, but I think it needs a little more. I'm not saying it had to go full If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, anxiety-inducing stress, but I felt like there should be bigger stakes here instead of the lighter tone that it went for here. It just, those touches of warmth just felt a little too manufactured. That kind of pulled me out of the story ever so often. So yeah, I'm a little bit on the fence here, but if I were to recommend the film or not, I'd say kind of not. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, everyone's fine in it, but yeah, it's just it doesn't work. I mean, like, the actors are all great, but you really do want better for them. So yeah, I can't quite recommend Toe. So Toe, I think, should be playing in a few theaters if you can find it, though it's a much smaller release. I'll watch anything for Rose, but this does sound... Oh yeah. Yeah, if you watch the trailer, you can pretty much predict the route it will take and how soft it will be. And I'm sure her defense will be, well, that's how Amanda's story played out. And I'm sure it is. But I think it can easily be warped into saying, look, Amanda could get her car back. Why can't you? Why can't you just live in a homeless shelter for over a year while you get in contact with lawyers and try to make money to pay your legal fees? If she can do it, you can. That's something I hate about the film. That is probably like the worst takeaway that you could get from the film. And somebody's going to do that. Somebody is gonna take that example and use it to and weaponize it against homeless people. So yeah, that pulled me the wrong way. But yeah, good performances. If you like Dominic Sessa, if you liked him as the teenager and the holdovers, and if you like Octavia Spencer, she delivers about the performance you'd expect. It's not surprising, but it's also she does what she does. There's a reason that they hire her, and I can't deny that she gave the director what they expected. Let's see. Andia says, yeah, Nintendo is scared to take risks. I used to think they had more integrity than Illumination. Well, I mean, they're working with Illumination, so obviously they want what they're serving up. I think I actually made a video in 2020 about this team up, and I thought, okay, for sure, Nintendo is not going to rock the boat here. They looked at Illumination, they looked how much money they made, and how much of a summer staple they are with their Despicable Me movies, and said, do that. Do that with Mario. And that's what they did. They pretty much took that same framework and applied it to Mario. With heavy references. I think that's the other way I described the first Mario movie, is that it didn't feel like an adventure. It felt like going through a house that Nintendo had wrapped in plastic to preserve the freshness. Like, oh, don't touch this. Don't sit on that. We don't want to spill anything on anything. Just everything's got to be clean and nice, just as we remember it. It's like, that's boring. What was even the point? It's like, again, like Kevin Garnett. Why the fuck would you show me that if I can't have it? What's the point? What's the point of giving me a Mario movie if Mario can't have an arc? See, Jack says, I was in and out of homeless shelters as a child, so just imagining that pisses me off. Oh, I'm sure it would. Just based on that alone, I would say, yeah, you should steer away from this film. Especially with how Amanda interacts with the other homeless women in this movie. Oh my god. It's hard to, like, eventually you're meant to, like, come around on her, and I kind of did, but oh my god, insufferable around some of these homeless women. Let's see. Jack says, I like that movie, but it's very unpretentious, but he can be a bitch. Yeah. He can. There is some stuff I like from him. I think if I were to do a video on him, it would have to be a little bit more thoughtful, because I do like some of his videos. Not all. There's some I absolutely despise, but I do think there is an earnestness there that I don't want to discard so easily. Because then I feel like, well, for one, then I'd have to come back and cover it again, which I don't want to do. So I have to cover it, have to cover a little bit more in depth. That's what I meant to say. All right. Well, we're just about at the end here, so let's do a quick recap of the movies that we reviewed on today's stream. I reviewed the Super Mario Galaxy movie, the sequel to 2023 Super Mario Brothers movie, and it is nothing more than an Easter egg hunt where all the Easter eggs are right out in front, crowding out the characters, crowding out the arcs, crowding out the chemistry, and just shoving so many Nintendo Easter eggs down your throat that you're going to be vomiting up pastels. Did not care for this film. But then we reviewed Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, which, despite some clumsy dialogue here and there and a few too many characters crowding the screen, I do think there is still some charm left in this film of Samara Weaving trying to outsmart and outgun a bunch of Satanists trying to kill her as they explode into bloody chunks. The chunks still work. And finally, I reviewed Toe with Rose Byrne playing a homeless woman trying to get her car back. There are some inspiring moments and some decent performances, but also a very troubling depiction of the legal system and the homeless system that really just tore me the wrong way and made it really hard to appreciate the performances. So, a bit of a mixed review from me on there. So I think among all the three films I reviewed today, Ready or Not 2 is the one worth going out to the theater to see. Now, if you would like to read reviews of everything that I talked about on today's stream, you can go to movieswithmark.com to check out the written reviews that are up there. In fact, the Super Mario Galaxy review was just posted today at around 2 p.m. when the embargo dropped. So it's a very fresh review, just written today. And if you want to stay up to date on the latest movies, like the Super Mario Galaxy movie, be sure that you are subscribed to this channel, because we are coming up on summer movie season. So if you want to hear if the next Supergirl movie is worth checking out, or the next Minions movie might be the one to finally break the mold, it probably won't, but who knows? I'd like to be surprised. I would hope it does. It probably won't, but if you want to see, be sure that you're subscribed to this channel so that you stay up to date on the latest movies. Also, if you want to support the channel, you can check out the Patreon that I have listed below in the description. The Patreon will actually give you access to the video essays a day early before they drop. It'll also give you access to my movie history books. I'm currently writing a book on banned movies from around the world. So when that book is, you'll be able to read chapters as I finish them. And once the book is done, those who are under the $3 tier will get a digital copy, and those under the $15 tier will get a physical copy. So once that book is done, those copies are getting shipped out. And there's also a few other videos up there. But yeah, we got so much more coming up in April. So yeah, stay tuned for more movie reviews. So thank you all for coming out, everyone in the chat here, all the patrons who have backed the videos and the books that I've been doing thus far. And also, for those of you who came out to Anime Detour last weekend, for any of you who showed up to the panels. They were a lot of fun to do, especially those of you who joined in on the Incorrect History of Anime panel. That was wonderful to improv with y'all. So, yeah, I will be back in about a week or two for more movie reviews, and there are more video essays and profiles coming down the pike. So be sure to keep watching this channel. There's more coming. I know it's been a while since I made the last essay, but that's because I spent a lot more time writing them, and I want to make sure that they're good. So plenty more coming. So I'll catch y'all next time, and have a good one.